Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at the Dubai FinTech Summit. As Dina introduced me, I'm Abdallah Al Jouaid, a finance reporter at CNN Business Arabic or CNN Al Iqtisadiyya. And today we're going to be covering one of my favorite topics, which is startups and why is India a unicorn hub? Mr. Ishan and Mr. Harsh, welcome again. I will start with you, Mr. Harsh. Why, in your opinion, is India a unicorn hub?
Thank you so much, and pleasure to be at this event. Um, so, see, really, today as we see India, it's not just that this become the hub today because this thing was brewing for many years. So we always had engineers, we always had a lot of people, we always had the business thinking. I think it just came together in the last 10, 15 years, where the infrastructure developed in the country, consumers got more cash in the hand, their spending power increased, and now we are seeing a lot more companies who are able to serve, created in India for India. It's a billion plus people. You earn $1 from each person. In a year, it's $1 billion revenue. It's scale is out there. I think the building blocks has happened in the last 10, 15 years. We've seen growth in various segments, and each of those segments have proven the product market fit. Now they're all up for a scale up, and that's the benefit that we are seeing right now.
Okay, Mr. Ishan, my question is, as we know, the startups in India were overgrowing during the last decade. Why? And what they've been doing right to achieve this success?
Yeah. So I think like Harsh was talking about it earlier as well, that India is in a phase where it's not just startups which are growing, it's whole of India is growing. So when I say whole of India is growing, the GDP of India is growing significantly. Today India is probably fifth largest GDP and it's come from probably like 10th largest to fifth within a decade and probably be like third by another decade or so. So it's a crazy story from a growth perspective for India, which has translated to startups in a very different way because most of the startups in India are relatively new. So I can think of the oldest startup that I can think of is probably like 20 years old. So the whole decade was about the startup ecosystem maturity as well, that lot of different companies got started in a very different fields, and each of those fields required technology to grow at a pace at which these startups were growing. And technology was available and adopted in India at a very rapid pace because the digitization of or the access to digital content, access to internet was highly available in last decade, primarily coming from mobile, coming from internet that is coming through their mobile, which was giving people access, and the middle class in India grown massively over a period of that time, both in terms of consumption and part of that consumption went online. And once that consumption went online, all the startups got huge benefit out of it. And that's what we are seeing in India becoming like unicorns, the startups becoming unicorns. But I think unicorn for India is again, like Harsh was saying, is very small.
Yes.
I think India has a potential to do decathlon and even bigger companies, especially in the startup ecosystem as well.
You mentioned the technology. We know that there is the technology is developing in India, but startups rely on technology, and it's not really developing as well as the startups want that. So, do you think, in your opinion, what are the challenges today? Maybe is capital a challenge, especially after the interest rate spike during 2022?
So there are practically two kind of answers of this question. One is from a technology perspective, considering the ecosystem is still relatively new and the technology which is getting built in India for the different use cases might not be scalable to a level where it can reach to billions of Indians. So that's where technology challenge of scalability is a big challenge today, where what was built 5 years back, 6 years back, might be kind of redundant today because the scale is significantly larger. And if you have to kind of rebuild your systems, it requires a lot of capital at the same time because you need to build a solid team. But at the same time, there's a lot of what you can say is the marketing of the technology is also required for it to be tested again. So if you build a new product and it need to reach to consumer and a lot of consumer need to try it on for it to kind of be a scalable product, which requires capital. And like you were talking about, the interest rate probably is not the only reason, but the liquidity in general has kind of relatively reduced over last year or two, which has created bit of challenge for startup ecosystems, especially which are not yet profitable to kind of raise capital at a valuations which were available in 2021 or 22 early timeframes, is becoming a big tough challenge for the startups.
Mr. Harsh, what about the workforce talent problems?
Yeah, India is known for supplying engineers across the world, right? And we've been developing softwares. It used to be more back-end and as a service. Now, in the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a lot more products getting built for the India. And there's a lot of reverse brain drain that's happening. I mean, I was working in the US and I've realized that the action is happening in Flipkart, and I came back to India and started working. That's how we, started Groww. So a lot more people are coming back, and the talent, India is becoming more of a talent pool now. Yes. So I think it will need a little more patience to see how the consumer also get used to the technology products, because a lot of the technology is not really a block for developing. I think it's more from the consumption point of view. The mobile and internet is the only channel through which consumers are consuming all the innovations that are happening out there. So there's a learning curve out there, because from an education point of view, from a development point of view, there's still not the entire 1.5 billion people are ready. I think that's taking time. That's where the innovation is going to happen more. But talent, I think it's all there. We just need to have some more time, give them more time. They'll come.
And what about the infrastructure problems also?
So infrastructure, the tech infrastructure, or?
Let's talk a bit about the infrastructure problems. Where do they stand today?
Yeah. So overall in India, we've seen great progress in the one part of the infrastructure which is more on the finance side, financial. If you see products like UPI, which is like the most scalable payment infrastructure. We have Aadhaar, which has unified all the country individuals' identity. Products like DigiLocker, where the storage, everything is happening, and these are accessible very, very easily by any end user or the B2B businesses or the regulators to keep in check. Everywhere it's connected really well. I think the other aspect of infrastructure which is now getting developed is more on the ground infrastructure, which also enables a lot more businesses to be set up or to be closed. The capital movement from the banks or the financial institutes to the startups and to the individuals, on ground infrastructure to set up offices and all. So that is still, I think there's still more growth. I mean, a lot more growth that needs to happen there. We'll see soon.
Thank you. Mr. Ishan, what about the expectations for the rest of 2023 and for 2024 as well? Yeah, 2022 Indian startups faces a lot of layoffs. This is why I'm asking this question especially.
So I think if you look at, again, 2021 was relatively kind of unprecedented time. I think a lot of startups, not only startups actually, a lot more of even foreign companies who came to India and opened up their development centers actually was hiring more than what they really needed. And some of the kind of extra hiring got laid off over last year or so. So the expectation is that we are now in a phase where it's more of a stabilization, and I think the growth or the hiring will start picking up in some time versus the layoffs news that we are hearing from last 1 year will probably go away because the major churn that was supposed to happen has already happened. And another thing that is kind of I am seeing I was talking to one of the investors also recently was that even the capital access, which was relatively muted over last year or so, will be kind of start going up. It has, again, there is a high correlation with the US markets as well.
Yes.
So if you see in last quarter or so, the US market has been relatively seeing a sign of positive trend. Even the interest rate cycle looks like it's have somewhere peaked. So overall, there is a bit of, people are seeing it is like the bottom is already has happened. So probably there will be like a positive trend going forward, both from a capital as well as indirectly from a hiring perspective as well.
Mr. Harsh, what are your expectations as well, please?
So I think next like 12 to 24 months are going to be really, from the Indian ecosystem point of view, very exciting, because last 5 years we saw a lot of innovations happening. Last 12 months we saw a lot of correction happening. So startups who have come, thus far, who have crossed the last 12 months, the products who have crossed the tough time and got established the product market fits, the investors, the entire capital ecosystem, which has seen one of the toughest times, at least in the last few years, I think they're all getting very much ready to back the right solutions. And next 12 months, 24 months, we will see a significant scale up happening with the good solutions, good products, good companies out there. There will be a lot more innovations also, because Ishan was also mentioning a lot of fresh capital, or the risk or the experiment capital is also going to enter in India. So we will see a lot more innovations also happening at an infrastructure level or at a consumer experience level. We'll see a lot of growth.
Okay.
Just add to that, I think we are a 7-year-old company, and when we started, actually, this was the similar time. I think
I told you I'm impressed by your story as well also.
So that time as well, we saw that the market was literally boomed around 2015 timeframes from a startup ecosystem perspective, and then 2016 was relatively a tough time. And people who survived that 16, 17 and built a product which was probably liked by the customer were able to actually scale significantly in positive times. And that's how typically cycles work. When you survive the bad times, are the ones who will become winners in a longer run.
Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you, everyone. Wish we can meet next year at the Dubai FinTech Summit 2024. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.